Hey YouTube, this is Kevin Bowen of Bowen Small Engine, and today guys I'm working on a Z425 John Deere. Now guys, I want to note that I am not a huge fan of the torque trans pumps. I'm just not, okay? Personally, I prefer hydro gear, and I know there's going to be a few people give me flack about that, but honestly I just feel that hydro gear basically makes a better pump, okay? But moving along, because that isn't really what we're focusing on here today. What we're focusing on is an adamant homeowner that thought he had a fuel pump issue. And I'm here to tell you guys that it wasn't a fuel pump issue that was causing this guy his problems. It was actually a lot of neglect. As you can clearly see, this mower had been extremely neglected. To the point that stale gas was able to come through the lines, and basically it took its toll on the carb, which I'm going to show you guys right here. You can see this carb has been put through hell, even to the intake. If you look, the gaskets are beginning to dry rot and break because of heat. Now I know with experience that that carburetor is basically going to have dissolved O-rings, okay? Basically wouldn't even care to bank money on that, okay? But moving along, the reason that I wanted to make this video was to show you guys what kind of hell as a service tech we have to go through, and why that your repairs may be potentially more expensive than what you anticipated, such as this homeowner, okay? Now I'm not in the habit of price shocking people, so before I get any negative comments, let me note that, you know, I did contact the owner and let him know what I'd found. And he's completely fine with it, even though he was sold on the idealism that it was a fuel pump. I basically am going to show pictures of what I find in the carburetor to reassure him that I'm not trying to pull the wool over his eyes, so to speak, okay? But anyway, I wanted you guys to see just how hard this carburetor was to get off. If you look, you'll see this side panel here, okay, when it's properly aligned, actually only gives you about that much space. And if you look at the carb, you'll see that it's extremely tight within the hole. Now, unfortunately, I done pulled the carb off, but I'll still be able to show you what I'm talking about here. I'm just going to place it back in somewhat. If you look, you'll see how close that carb is to that side panel, making it impossible to get the bolts out unless you take off that back cover, which I'm showing you guys right here, and move the panel over enough to where you have access. That in itself can be a pain in the ass, guys, truthfully, when you have to work on one of these engines. Why that John Deere allowed Briggs to place their engines on these units sideways is truly beyond me. Or maybe John Deere themselves, okay, wanted the engines placed on sideways. I have no idea. But it was really stupid in design, because you don't provide enough room really to work on these engines unless you have to pull off, you know, an extreme amount of parts. And that can get time consuming if you don't have the experience, okay, like I do. All right, now luckily enough, as I said, I've done this a few times and I know how to speed up the process, shall we say. But the average Joe, it just makes hell for. And I truly feel sorry for the average Joe that has to work on one of these pieces of equipment, no matter how experienced he is. Because I'll be honest, it probably took me a good 20 minutes to pull all this shit off just to have access to this carburetor. I am not a fan, okay, of putting an engine in any piece of equipment sideways where you do not have access to, you know, various components such as starters, valve covers, carburetors, rectifiers. I could go on and on, guys. I believe in having adequate space to get to the parts externally on an engine. I think this is complete bullshit. I personally would never buy John Deere for this very reason. But I wanted to note that to my viewers, okay? To bear in mind that if you want one of these pieces of equipment and you're sold on the idealism that these things are going to last forever, you're out of your mind, okay? Plain and simple. No machine's going to last forever. But if you don't take care of your machines and you allow them to become neglected, as this guy did, then the repairs are going to be expensive, okay? It's just common sense, guys. You don't neglect your equipment to this point and then expect it to be a cheap fix, because it's simply just not going to be. Most shops charge anywhere between $60 to upwards even $80 an hour. So bear that in mind. If you're lazy and you're not contending to your equipment as you should, then expect a high bill, guys. Until the next video.